help women, save lives, and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. And she just came out. She told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. We had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion. And this podcast today, happy Easter, by the way, happy April. This podcast will be full of great news. We're going to share some of the amazing results of the spring campaign, what it means, the implications moving forward as we are in a post-Roe America. We're approaching the second anniversary of the overturning of Roe versus Wade this June. And if you have not registered already, please join us for the Celebrate Life weekend. It's going to be awesome. June the 21st through June the 23rd, we will be having an entire weekend. There will be a dinner on Friday night in Washington, D.C. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire is our guest speaker at that dinner. The next day, on Saturday, we will be having a rally at the Lincoln Memorial. There's nothing like it. We did this last year, and we are doing it again. We're teaming up with our friends at Sidewalk Advocates for Life and Students for Life, and we're going to have a great crowd. Abby Johnson's moving her entire conference to Washington, D.C., so that'll start Saturday afternoon and into Sunday. It'll be lined up with great speakers. Go to the website on the page for the Celebrate Life weekend and register. You can just come to the rally. You can just come to the gala. You can do the whole thing. We obviously encourage you to do the whole thing and enjoy this weekend, which needs to be celebrated because it was a historic event that many people didn't think that they would live to see. And that many people didn't live to see, but they worked for this awesome historic day. And it is more important now than ever that we have prayerful, efficient, effective 40 Days for Life campaigns, as this issue is now so entrenched in the grassroots. And we're going to share a lot of good stuff, including 5 sets of twins saved. There's a little teaser for you. 5 sets of twins saved during the spring 40 Days for Life. That has never happened. So joining me today is somebody who always has good news. Even when he dwells on bad news, he has good news in his heart and in his soul, particularly when he gets out of cold weather and comes to Texas. And that is Mr. Steve Carlin.
Yes, my heart is filled with joy.
You look like it.
Yeah.
And somebody who always has good news, that's all I have to say, is Heather Gardner.
Glad to be here.
You created this outline for us today, is that true?
Steve created one and I created one.
We have two.
It's a battle of the outlines.
It's a battle of the outlines.
It's a battle of the outlines. All the good news is yours. All the bad news is Steve's. Steve's going to report bad news on the Good News podcast.
No, but lots of good stories and crazy stories. So, yeah.
I do have something important to tell you.
Can't wait.
You're an idiot.
Oh, scratch that.
So, scratch that.
I hear the Grinch's, you're an idiot, like echoing in my
We've debated and we've brought in the audience into this, so I want to do a follow-up. You don't like Luke Bryan.
Oh, yeah, I'll stand by that.
Very anti-Luke Bryan, actually.
Yeah.
Hostile towards Luke Bryan. Now, I didn't like him, and then I kind of liked him, and now I really like him. Yeah. So I did
Sin deadens the conscience. It's a gradual.
I think it's called conversion. Okay. So the reason I really, really like it is because, number one, his music's fun. Like, where's the old man in you? Your kids get older. You're like, yeah, this is kind of peppy. It's fun. The kids like it. So that was part of it. But then I saw, when I had foot surgery, this is kind of, I'm like, propped up. I can't move. And so I do what everybody does, which is just like binge watch television. And so the first thing I watched, like hours after I got out of the operating room, was the documentary on Luke Bryan, which is extremely moving.
I didn't know there was one.
He's been married to the same woman forever. That's like a positive part. But everyone dies. Like 3 of his siblings, a brother-in-law. Like his life of suffering, it really shows like he had to put off Nashville because his brother died. I'm just tugging at Steve's heart if that's possible. So anyways, that's fine. You don't like his music. Then, recently,
I was all set to be like, yeah, I'm sure he's a great guy, but his music is bad.
Yeah, you're going to do
came
like
prepared for that. You're ready.
That's nothing. Yeah, because now first off, you're just dead wrong on what's the song "Country On," which we've talked about on the podcast. You don't like that song. That's in the category of Steve's an idiot. The other thing I want to put in that category is he just did one with our boy John Party.
Okay.
Do you like that song, Cowboys and Plowboys?
I have not heard that song yet.
You're lying because you like it.
You
haven't heard
I expect
it?
I will like it because there is a song. Luke Bryan is like, I don't like movies that star Ben Stiller, but if Ben Stiller's a goofball on the side, I usually like it. So if Luke Bryan is playing a side role, I've heard some songs where he plays a side role that I have liked. So I will say I'll probably like it. I think my like of John Party. These are 2 equal forces battling. How much I like John Party and how much I don't like Luke Bryan. It's going to be the humidifier and the dehumidifier battling it out.
It's Cowboys and Plowboys. John Party, of course, is the cowboy. Luke Bryan is the plowboy. It's a great song.
I'll check it out.
It's not as good as Country On. Country On is a God-fearing, pro-American song, and you don't like it.
It's written by like 36 writers in a laboratory with algorithms.
Oh my gosh, I know. And then you're gonna pull your conscience is dead and all that crap. And it's like you don't like America, you don't like Luke Bryan, you don't like God. All of it's in that one
George Strait
song.
didn't need 36 writers.
Oh gosh, you're not gonna don't try to turn my guy against me, okay? And so then if they did a song together, you'd have to submit. But I know you love John Party, and it's good. You've heard the song.
I haven't. To be determined. Or if I have, I don't know.
I'm not even like in with the times. My kids tell me I live under a rock, but I've heard this song like, multiple times. It's great.
Maybe I've been living under a rock lately. I don't know. I've been on the sidewalk.
Oh gosh, y'all are just
And reading the Bible.
doing like the old Irish granny
And
guilt.
lengthening her tassels. Her
Yeah.
I didn't have time to listen to the radio. I was feeding the poor people. Anyways, I think that's where I heard it. I was on my way back. I had volunteered for Mother Teresa's nuns in Calcutta all last month. And then on my way back, I turned on the radio and Cowboys and Plowboys.
Makes sense.
Now I remember.
Yeah.
Anyways, great song. You got to check it out. And that's there's very few things about you that don't make sense to me. You're a very straightforward, like sort of Midwest meat and potatoes guy. This doesn't make any sense to me. Is you not liking Country On and you claiming you've never heard this other song, Cowboys and Plowboys? Because I think that you over time are gonna do the grumpy old man thing and be like, Luke Bryan, he ain't country. And then you'll get older and you'll be like, I did the same with Kenny Chesney. I didn't like Kenny Chesney when he came out. Now he's like old school. He's awesome.
So you think some wisdom will change my...
Yes, I think time and children, your wife, like the things that matter, maybe God will help direct you towards being like, I've been really hard on Luke Bryan. And now some of his songs are bad. I'm not gonna.
We found common ground.
Yes, some of his songs are bad, and there's some that I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. This is why people hate him. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's like one of those things. Like when Bloomberg, the mayor in New York, he wanted to outlaw big gulps, and like Bill Maher is like, this is why people hate liberals. Like you do this stupid stuff, and this is that Luke Bryan definitely has some of that with some of his songs. But overall, great guy. I encourage people to watch the documentary. Just on, like, he's a Christian guy, but just suffering. He had a little Job going on. I mean, and it's kind of like he became the entertainer of the year and he, won all these awards, but it's like, who cares? And I've never seen him in concert and whatever, but apparently he dedicates all the concerts to his siblings that he lost and his brother-in-law.
Are you trying to covertly here say that I'm like Job's friends who God just totally smacks down at the end?
And you're like, who cares about Job? Get over it. I didn't like his music. So for whatever that's worth, this occurred to me on the way here today because I was on Highway 6 coming to our building and I heard Cowboys and Plowboys. And I said out loud to myself, Steve's an idiot. And I thought, well, maybe this is something we should talk about on the podcast.
It's a good thing. Usually I ride up here with you. Today I rode up with Matt. And so we've got excellent content for the listeners as a result.
Absolutely. Okay. Moving on from that issue. Okay, so overall, I want to put this in context because this is something that is surprising, but thank God. 40 Days for Life continues to grow post-Roe. I didn't think that we would. I thought we would shrink for the best reasons. Abortion clinics close. We just lose city. We're not going to cut our cities in half. But I thought we're going to start trickling down. And that's the goal ultimately. Hopefully, we don't even need any of this garbage because abortion's gone. But that didn't happen. We added cities, and we continue to add cities. So the first fall campaign and the Lent campaign after the fall of Roe, record-sized campaigns, and then last fall we beat the previous fall. Fall's always a little bit bigger, and then this Lent we beat the previous Lent. So the trend is that more people want to do 40 Days for Life. Abortion is not this troublesome issue that we hear that it is in the political realm, but that locally there's a lot of hope, and our growth is in pretty pro-abortion areas.
Yeah, that is the case. And the number that we shared even since before Roe was overturned is prior to Roe being overturned of the abortion facilities that closed following a 40 Days for Life campaign in the United States. Nearly half of them, 45%, were in the blue states, the liberal states, the abortion-friendly states. And I think that right now people are seeing that and they're inspired by it because you can have Newsom and you can have all of the politicians sprinting toward the wrong side of history. Okay, what can we do? Certainly we need to stay involved in the political and the legislative processes. But 40 Days for Life brings hope to people where there is no hope in their state capital or their state Supreme Court or anybody who has their hands on the levers of power.
Yeah, and that's super important. And even with the shift to RU46 and chemical abortions, we're getting more. What was the stat you told me before we started recording? Something about chemical abortions. Our saves.
Oh, our saves from the reversals. Yeah.
Yes.
From my perspective, it seems like we've heard more leaders reporting saves of babies from the abortion pill reversal, which is amazing. So a mom went and took the abortion pill and then encountered either pro-lifers with 40 Days for Life. Well, with our vigils, they encountered our leaders or the volunteers on the sidewalks telling them that they took the abortion pills. They immediately regretted it. And thankfully, we've got a great number of pregnancy centers across the country that are offering the abortion pill reversal. And so the volunteers know right away that they can take a woman to a safe place and start administering the abortion pill reversal, which is usually a series of shots to reverse the effects of the abortion pill. And the success rate, according to the Abortion Pill Rescue Network, is approximately 70%. I think it's like 67 or 70% success rate.
It started at like 22%, right? Because it was just this this hope, and then they had to figure out the timing and the dosage and everything. And the fact that I remember when they crossed like 40%, and I thought, this is legit. Like that's nearly half the babies, and now it's closer to 70.
Yeah, it's very successful. And I'll just go ahead and jump right into one of those stories then, because it was so amazing. So one of our Manhattan locations, amazing situation. We had prayer volunteers praying, and they noticed a very distraught man that was going, basically pacing back and forth in front of the entrance. And they noticed that he would go right up to the door, and then he would have to walk back. And so finally, one of them was able to call him over. He spoke Spanish, and he spoke to one of the volunteers and said, "My wife is in there getting an abortion. I don't want her to get an abortion. I didn't know that's what she was here for, and they won't let me inside the building now." And so the volunteers didn't know what to do, so they called the police because they thought this husband should be allowed to go into the facility, and they're not letting him go in. So a policeman actually showed up within a few moments and escorted this father in. They were able to bring the mother out.
Because they wouldn't let her out either. She wanted to leave, and she reported, at least this is what we're told by the people there, that she was not allowed to leave.
And this happens a lot. The cops never do anything because it does. The place kind of goes into lockdown when all of a sudden the husband doesn't want the abortion.
He tried half a dozen times to get in and was turned away each time. And so we told, would not let her out until law enforcement showed up.
Think of the abortion workers who are like doing this.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't have all been agreed on this. Like,
no, I'm sure there was.
Should we let the husband in? I mean, now you're telling me to lock the door and call it,
Right. And I'm sure there was the manager or somebody that was saying, "Oh, you don't know, he could do something crazy. It's for our safety. It's for our client's safety." That's what they always claim. And so this was a situation where the couple walked down the street, and the volunteer that was connecting with the father was able to talk with them while they were walking, and they got them connected to a nearby center to go right away to go get the abortion pill reversal because they found out she had already taken the first pill that was there. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. This is why I'm saying there's so many of them that it's easy to get them mixed up now. But she was far along. She was 17 weeks pregnant.
17 weeks pregnant. And so we're getting these updates in real time, right?
Yes.
Text messages as I'm like putting green beans on the kids' plate at dinner time. And they went in, okay, great. We were able to get the police, get her out. And then it wasn't until later that they realized, shoot, she took the abortion pill inside while she was there.
Yeah.
And not only that, 17 weeks pregnant, 3 abortion pills. So they got her to the Sisters of Life, found the doctor, the pro-life doctor, and were able to administer the abortion. But even after that, she was still getting pressured by family members, not the husband, but other family members who wanted her to have that abortion. And so it was touch and go for a while. Like I said, we're getting text message updates like 3 times a day for about a week until finally, thanks be to God, they confirmed that woman was locked in on a life decision and the ultrasound showed a healthy heartbeat.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to the Sisters of Life. If you don't know who they are, we reference them a lot. We've sent out photos. They have these beautiful blue and white habits. They are sisters that were started in the 90s by Cardinal O'Connor, God rest his soul. And they just help pregnant women, and they take them in. They can live with the sisters. They help with other kids. They help the mom have the baby, get her medical help. It's just the most... You can take the most pro-abortion person in America, and they will respect the Sisters of Life. And, of course, they're big participants in 40 Days for Life in New York. They're based in New York. I think now they have some sisters in Phoenix and other places. But we lost an employee to the Sisters of Life years ago. I never forgave her for quitting so that she could become a sister. But it's just so beautiful. And we know them really well, and they've been part of the New York 40 Days for Life for so long that you just forget, well, the sisters were probably out there. And, as the phrase goes, everybody acts differently when there's a nun in the room. And so it's just absolutely beautiful. That's awesome. It's awesome. And we always say, oh, yeah, 45% of them close, in pro-abortion areas, all the closures that we've been part of. But, that's actually true. And we start today in Manhattan.
The other thing that's true is we talk about all the time, you send out emails, Sean, and we do the podcast and the magazine, and we talk about saving lives at the last desperate moment. That's not an exaggeration. That's not an embellishment. She had taken the abortion pills. We've got some other great stories. Downers Grove, Illinois.
Which is just suburban Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Woman heads into the a different abortion facility parking lot in an Uber, and the sidewalk counselors are able to hand something to the driver of the Uber. He passes it on. The woman goes...
Way to go.
Yeah.
Like, that's good for the
Yeah,
Uber driver.
That's great.
The woman goes in. She's on the operating table. Her feet are in the stirrups. They're about to start. And she thinks back to the resources that were provided to her via the Uber driver from the sidewalk counselors. And she told them no. And they weren't really hearing it. She's like, no, I'm leaving. And she stormed out. And so the volunteers that were out as part of the campaign, they hugged her and they bought her dinner and they offered her a variety of help. And she left in another Uber, thanks be to God, without getting that abortion. So another literally last minute on the operating table got up and left.
That happens, but it's extremely rare. The first time we ever got a story like that was in Orange, California, which was like 2010 or 11, where a lady sprinted out barefoot of an abortion facility, because it's even at the last moment, which is why we've talked about it a lot. When we moved into this place, the closed Planned Parenthood, they had the baby mobiles over the beds where the women would lay, embrace themselves for the abortion. They'd have a baby mobile to distract them at the very last minute. So they obviously know more than us that they need that. You know, you're not really doing that for other basic surgeries. You're afraid somebody's going to jump up and leave. That doesn't really happen a lot.
On second thought, I want this broken appendix inside me.
Yeah, people say they're going to do that because they don't like the dentist, but nobody actually really does it, right? Nobody jumps up and sprints out. And it just shows, like, what other legitimate healthcare would you physically run from?
Yeah.
What would you run from? But also, I think, I mean, none of us know because we weren't in that room, but I'm picturing that not only was it brave for her to make that decision, but then she had to double down, most likely on that decision, that I'm determined and you will not keep me on this table. Because as we know, we've heard stories from quitters, from former abortion workers, and even from some moms who almost had an abortion, that the abortion workers tried to force them or psychologically coerce them by basically saying, no, we're already at this step. And once you started, you can't stop now, because if we stop this, XYZ could happen. And when we know good and well, like, no, you can stop an abortion before, if you haven't actually started, if the doctor hasn't started the abortion procedure yet and the actual going into the uterus, then she should be able to get off that table. And then, sadly, I don't know about you guys, but I've heard stories from human trafficking, sex trafficking survivors where they did have a forced abortion, where they were forcibly held down on the table. So that sort of thing happens. And again, back to your question, what other type of procedure does that happen where they have to force you? I mean, unless you're like it's psychologically,
or you're 8 and you don't want the flu shot. I tried to run away from the doctor one time when I was like 9 years old because I didn't want the flu shot. But yeah, that's different if you're a kid. I kind of have a dark thought here, which is, the people that, this is the problem with, you mentioned having your appendix out, or somebody says, Bob had a heart attack and they rushed him in, and you just know what that entails. It entails emergency surgery. They're going to open your chest up. It's violent. It's not, it's surgery. They're doing everything they can. They shock you. There's a lot that chemotherapy, everybody knows that that's hell. But abortion isn't described ever.
No.
So when you have it live in this rhetoric, and it's nice, it's freedom, it's reproductive health care, it's between a woman and her doctor, it's this very like, you're going to go in the room, you're going to be in there for a little bit, then you're going to leave. And I think these women that actually jump up, which of course they're the courageous ones that do it, how many of them actually think about it? Like if somebody was in there and the nurse said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Which, they ask at other surgeries that are elective. But if you walk in, think about what you see. You see the table with the tools. You see the IV. You see the tubes. I've heard a lot of post-abortive women just talk about the tubes that the baby is going to travel through after the abortion. It just starts to get real. The bed. You know how when you're having something done, you're like, okay, this is getting real. And even when I had my foot surgery, I'm like, okay, I want to do this, right? Because there's just that natural, but it's all been described to you before. 10 different ways. And you're like, I get it. I know what they're going to do. And you go. But abortion doesn't work like that. They're not going to say, well, first we're going to dismember the baby and then we're going to use a suction and they don't do any of that because then everybody would run out.
Yeah, we've got another story very much like this, but even a little bit more dramatic, I think, which is in Boston. And longtime leader there, Rita. She's a saint. Wonderful. I hope Rita's listening because she's awesome.
She's great.
They had saved a baby last year during the 40 Days for Life campaign, and they stayed in touch with the family, and they have a photo of that baby. And one of the volunteers just brings out the photo of this baby who was saved at their vigil, like delivery room photo. And that people started noticing it. They saved one baby, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 babies. And one of those 6 babies was a woman going in for a late-term abortion. And she sees this photo of this baby as she walks in. She's going in for day 2. Day 1, they'd inserted the laminaria. If you don't know what laminaria are, it's basically like seaweed that's inserted. It absorbs the natural fluids of a woman's body, expands, dilates the cervix so they can pull out these largely formed body parts that are too big to get out otherwise, the skull, bones, things like that. So she's gone through the first day. The laminaria is in. She goes back the second day, and Planned Parenthood makes a mistake. They leave the sound on the ultrasound machine. And so she hears the whoosh, 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 whoosh. She thinks back to the guy outside with the 40 Days for Life vigil holding the picture of that baby. And she's like, I'm out of here. So she gets out, she stops, she talks to them. And I'm following them with Rita, right? Because I'm a little bit nervous. Like, you can't just like go home after that, right? This is still a dangerous situation. Like with abortion pill reversal, it's not just, okay, I'm just not going to take the second pill. I'm not just going to show up for the second day. But she too got off of the table, and they were able to get her in to see a pro-life doctor to help make sure that she would be able to reverse, not the abortion pill, but to reverse the beginning of that surgical abortion. That's a wild story.
That is really, do you know how many weeks along?
I can't remember.
But if it's
It was
late
second
term,
trimester.
Second trimester. We just don't want to make it real for people. Like it's gotta kill the baby. And I think that seeing the surgical tools, the bed, the fact that the doctor's going to come in, certainly you hear the heartbeat. That's what's so beautiful about the heartbeat, Bill.
Don't you mean electrical cardiac activity?
I'm sorry. The electrical cardiac activity bill, which we all
Heart
had.
tones.
The heart tones, cardiac activity.
But you can't say heart tones. You're still using the word heart, and that's too humanizing.
Who would have thought like heartbeat would become a curse word?
Oh, gosh.
Politically.
Yeah.
You know, it's cardiac activity.
Yeah.
So anyways, even in the cardiac arrest, what happened is our heart stopped beating. You know, I mean, it's just crazy. Okay, let's talk. So that's New York and Boston.
The pro-life capitals of America.
That's what's so great about this. But where was Elizabeth Warren? Because she said they needed to shut down all the pregnancy resource centers.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, there are 35 throughout the great state of Massachusetts. Which Massachusetts, you could ride your bike across it. You know, it's like the size of this county. And yet there's 35 pregnancy centers.
There's farms here, ranches bigger than Massachusetts.
Oh, totally. Totally. My home diocese of Tyler is the size of Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah. 5 hours away. It's like, you're still in my diocese. Okay, let's go through these closures.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we saw right after Roe was overturned, of course, you've got Louisiana, Mississippi, all of those places. But other than immediately after Roe being overturned, I don't know if we have seen such a wave of closures. The campaign started off with the news that the abortion facility in Fredericton, New Brunswick in Canada had closed. And the pro-lifers there reported that this is the first abortion facility to close in response to pro-life efforts in decades. So great news, this place had been open. It closed temporarily like a decade ago and then just reopened under new ownership or something to that effect. But it was kind of under the radar, and pro-lifers like, hey, this place is here. We should do a campaign. And sure enough, shortly after that fall campaign last year, it closed. But we go from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Charlotte, North Carolina. This one probably closed a couple of years ago, but we wanted to be sure that it wasn't reopening.
Great 40 Days for Life group there in Charlotte.
One of the longest tenured, oldest running.
Yep.
Reno, Nevada, blue state, part of what they call the unchurched belt, like the anti-Bible belt. Great.
And that guy was a nut.
Yes.
He played satanic music and made billboards that said God loves abortion. He had a lot of billboards that aren't appropriate for the podcast.
No wonder nobody wanted to take this place over.
He was there. All abortion doctors are a little out there, obviously, but he was in his own category of just crazy.
Des Moines, Iowa. Manchester, England, another very pro-life community. It's great when we see these places close in the UK. I know that's such an encouragement to Robert and all the
it's awesome.
European pro-lifers.
And to not forfeit an opportunity to criticize the stupid BBC. But this works. So they want to ban us. I know I've gone on this rant, but then women take the free help. They go to a pregnancy center. They choose life. And then places like Manchester can't stay open. But it's bad for England.
It's a form of harassment.
Oh, my gosh.
From there, we go to Clifton Park, New York. So, in spite of everything in New York. Here's my favorite, I think. I mean, it's picking my favorites is like picking my favorite child. But one of my favorites, Warren, Ohio. First of all, because Ohio is still reeling a little bit from that election back in November where they enshrined abortion in their constitution. But our leader there, wonderful Mary in Warren, New York. I'm talking with her on March 14th, and she's explaining how this entire campaign, I don't know why she picked the date, but she was praying for this facility to close by March 15th. So we're on the phone, and we'll see what happens. And the next day, March 15th, she shows up for her vigil hour, and it's closed for good, out of business.
Okay, so I've got some questions about this because this is one of those where it sounds like we're making it up.
Right.
Yeah.
But she said, starting at the start of the campaign, I'm going to pray that it closes on March 15th. And for the life of us, we don't know the significance of March 15th. Was it just halfway through March? Because St. Patrick's Day is the 17th. And that's the day I would have picked.
And we only have to reference St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
I can't figure out if I missed something or whatnot, but it had something to do with St. Joseph, which is the 19th for us Catholics. The Feast of St. Joseph is the 19th. So I don't know what the 15th had to do. Maybe that was the last business day before. I'm not exactly sure. I think the hours had been declining in that facility.
Unless she thought St. Joseph was on the 15th and God was like, her intention's so pure, I'm just going to go for it.
Well, here's what the question I thought you were going to ask is why didn't, if God's going to listen to Mary that specifically, next time Mary needs to pick an earlier date, make it like March 1st.
It doesn't hurt that her name is Mary. It just ties into the story. But it's pretty amazing. I've only heard of this happening one other time, and that was in Maryland.
Okay.
Where they said this facility will close before the end of the 40 Days for Life campaign, and I think it closed on day 2 or 3.
There's a similar one, actually. This didn't happen this campaign, but the last facility to close in Austin was right after Dobbs. And what was neat was we had a priest at a nearby Catholic parish who had moved. He had been transferred to this location. And so this was his first time to have an abortion facility within his parish bounds. And he took it, he looked that up and took it very seriously. So he's like, my mission, one of my number one missions as priest of this parish is to see this abortion facility close in under 5 years. And 3.5 years is when that facility closed.
Okay, see, that's like
awesome.
A realistic goal.
Yeah.
5 years. But these evangelicals in Maryland, they were like, name it and claim it.
Yeah.
And then it was over.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
I mean, in Ohio, if that closes on March 14th or March 16th, that's awesome. But the day that she picked was the day that it closed. And I don't think there was much reason to, we saw the for lease sign in the window. We're hoping this is the campaign. None of that. They're just asking the Lord to do it.
You're asking her, who's going to win the Super Bowl next year?
Yeah.
So Mary's going to try her luck in Vegas. But what should happen is these other campaigns should recruit her to be like, do you like Florida? Ohio's cold.
Ohio is cold.
Yeah, come down here.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. This is a good time to mention just normal campaigns where you pray that it closes and nothing happens. Grand Rapids, Charlotte, Reno really jump out at me because they've been there for the beginning, the very beginning of 40 Days for Life. Charlotte was actually one of the pilot campaigns, or even before 2007 when we launched it, where they had tested things out. You know, this is the problem. They could have easily gotten discouraged. I mean, they're now on 15, 16 years, 17 years.
Yeah, so we're talking more than 30 campaigns at this point.
Right. And God bless Mary in Warren, Ohio, who just says, that was all unnecessary. You should have just picked a date. But it just shows, number one, the persistence. I mean, you know, who thought, you know, it would take longer to close an abortion facility in Charlotte, North Carolina than in, I forget the name, I think it was College Park, Maryland, you know. And it's just, it really shows the persistence. It shows God's timing, but it shows the highlight of Mother Teresa, which is we're not called to be successful, we're called to be faithful. And, you know, I was approached by leaders recently, and they're not leaders anymore because their abortion facility closed. And they were sad, not because what they had worked for happened, but they're like, we're not 40 Days for Life leaders anymore, and they don't have an abortion facility nearby, and they're going to miss out on, you know, just that sort of, you know, network. And I think that is where places like Charlotte and Reno, who went for so long, you know, you build a true culture of life. You build a 40 Days for Life family. You build a great relationship with the pregnancy resource centers, and then all of a sudden your goal happens, and that's awesome. But it becomes a way of life for some of these places, and it's so nuts when you first bring a campaign. Why are y'all out here? Get out of here! You know, which is I'm sure what Mary was encountering in Warren and other places, but. That's just gone. It becomes...
But sadly, there's a greater opportunity now with our pharmacies becoming abortion facilities. So if they miss it that much and miss being, you know, flipped off and that sort of thing, they can just go to their local CVS.
You can definitely go to your local CVS or Walgreens, and I know we've categorized that, for lack of better words, it's a little fun because it's not just the audience that knows what Planned Parenthood is. It's everybody, and they're like, we're just here to buy ice for our cooler. What are y'all doing here? They distribute abortion pills. What? And it's just, you kind of can have some fun with it, you know, is to misuse that word. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about these 5 sets of twins. So every campaign, twins are saved. Praise God. And we use that as an excuse to put the word twins in a subject line because the open rate goes through the roof because we all love twins. Nobody can explain it. It's natural. And she saved her twins. Oh! Or I'm a twin. Or we're having twins. It's just a natural positive. I've never heard of, I don't think we've saved more than 2 sets before.
We've hit 3 before.
We've hit 3?
Yeah, because I know the 40 Days for Life emails are usually like the main story, and then like maybe like 2 more. And so oftentimes twins is like, we've had it as the day 41 story, the day 38 story. Sometimes it gets late. This time I think it did 2 just by how many sets of twins are we going to be able to add to the total here. But this one was, I don't think we've hit 4 before, and I definitely am not aware of us ever hitting 5 sets of twins before.
That would be a cool thing for you to do as a stat guy. How many sets of twins that we know of
In total.
have 40 Days for Life saved?
Yeah.
That's just a fun number.
Yes.
It's got to be over 50.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because I think it probably averages 2 or 3 a campaign. So we're now, as you said, 16 years into it.
That would be a lot
deep.
of research, actually. You'd have to really dig. You're searching twins in your email.
It's like finding the Ark of the Covenant.
It is. It is. It's going to be very hard.
But one of those stories was from Wichita, Kansas, and it was really cool because the mom had, I think it was a young mom, and she had 3 children already. Her mother was sitting in the car. Her mother didn't want her to go through with it, and was
Those kids were like 3, 2, and 9 months old, I think, too, right?
Yeah, she had
3
very
under 3.
young children. Yeah, and that's not uncommon in the pro-life world with a lot of our very fertile, prolific families we have. But
Is that the label? That's what we are. Yeah.
fertile.
Fertile myrtles.
Myrtles.
Fertile myrtles.
But naturally, the mom was feeling overwhelmed and just thought she couldn't do it. And then what was it? She asked to see the sonogram, and no. That was another. Oh gosh, there were so many of them. She came out later and told them that she found out she was having twins. And so she was happy. They received resources from the prayer volunteers, and they both celebrated as they left that she was keeping her babies, which was great.
Here's another aspect of that story, which I think plays in very well with the talking points we're seeing from the abortion industry. That woman in Kansas was from Oklahoma. They'll just travel out of state. You can't stop abortions. You're just making it more difficult. Well, thanks be to God, making it more difficult for this woman played a role in her ultimately embracing those kids. And she wasn't leaving frustrated. Now I have to have my babies because of these pro-lifers, these anti-choicers. She left smiling and waving.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened a lot since Roe was overturned.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to ignore those people. We had the lady from Florida go up to New Jersey and choose life the fall after Dobbs took out Roe.
Yeah.
And they're so full of it because what it is this sterile, they're going to do it anyway, lame argument, which is how we got abortion. It's how we get everything that's horrible, actually. We can have no regulation of anything. They're going to do it anyways. And so let's legalize it. It's just absolutely insane. And then you get these women that travel, and this is one of the degrading things against women once Roe was overturned, is how badly, I'll just say, the left looks at women as the most valuable thing you have is access to abortion. That's like the highest calling that you will aspire to.
Shout your abortion.
Shout your abortion. You're in Florida. DeSantis is evil. Go to California and get your abortion. And it's not, don't go to California and get your master's or, look at a tech executive job or anything. What came to fruition was how these people look at women as abortion. Like that's the biggest freedom that you have. All the accomplishments of women over the last 100 years, and abortion is like number one. It highlights everything because what proves it is you're not allowed to be a pro-life woman. So what about the women that think it's shameful that a woman would travel? And is like, no, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to go in Kansas and pray. And if some Oklahoma woman, I'm going to be there for her.
And these states that are trying to become abortion magnets or sanctuaries, they're not doing well on their population as it is. California is bleeding people. Half of New York, I think, moved to Florida in the last 5 years. So it's of all the things to try to lure people, it's not Silicon Valley, come work in the next big tech development. It's come get an abortion. It is a grim view of humanity.
And as we've mentioned before, and we need to do another podcast on it, we are underpopulated. Mm-hmm. We are underpopulated, and the U.S. was at 2.1, which replaces yourself. That factors in immigration. And so everybody's complaining about immigration, which I am too. I'm from Texas. It's a disaster. Biden's let like 8 million illegal immigrants into the country, which is just a disaster. Like no other country does that. But the reality is we're dependent on immigration, period, because we're not having children, and we haven't for decades. And that's why Europe, that's why Russia, certainly China, it's a disaster. I think we mentioned previously, Japan loses 870,000 people per year? Per year. So there'll be 0 Japanese people in like 100 years. Or it'll just be insignificant. Like Japan will be full of kids from California who go there to work. I mean, their economies are going to start to cave. It's going to be a total, the demographic winter, which is really a scary thing. But at no point will we say, part of reproductive health care needs to be to have healthy reproductive numbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, demography used to be something just normal that we studied so we could predict industry, markets, those kind of things. When the lunatic baby boomers came along and made it a population control thing, and we're overpopulated and there's not enough food and all that stuff, and and that tied right into where contraception is just becomes the norm, and we introduce abortion, and all that was led to this. And it's just amazing to me that the left or the abortion advocates don't want to talk about the population ramifications of this. Because half the sociologists in the world believe we're underpopulated. They're totally split down the middle. And that's not like the good, nice Christian sociologists, because that's like 1% of all of them. They're all nuts. Half of them think that we're underpopulated. That scares me. And I think we're underpopulated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should scare us. And
that's like Ted Kennedy saying we have like a crisis of faith in America, or something. God rest his soul. But they're just like, when the sociologists are like, we don't have enough people, that's scary.
No, and then nobody knows what's going to happen. They're just, well, I don't know. Artificial intelligence will fill those jobs. I don't think it's that easy. You still need the tax base. And granted, the tax base and Social Security are not the best reasons to choose life, but there's secondary effects here that nobody seems to be terribly interested in considering.
AI, I mean, but I think because of COVID, people are very skeptical of the AI stuff. I think young people are very, very skeptical. We've mentioned before the senior class right now is the most conservative class, the most mistrusting of government in the history of our country. They beat the baby boomers.
Yeah, people believe...
Because they were freshmen during COVID.
Yeah, people believe often what they see in front of them, though. So unless you live in a rural area, you're looking at this and saying, well, it sure doesn't look like we're underpopulated with all the traffic we have, and all of this, all these other problems where we see a whole bunch of people. It's like, yeah, but that's a bunch of people concentrated in one area. That doesn't mean overall.
But we're in America and everybody wants to live here.
Yeah.
And we're the fallout hasn't come yet.
Right.
But we're not going to be able to sustain our economy. That's kind of the answer, is that the Africans who've just rejected all of our nonsense, thank God, they'll go live wherever they want and work because they'll have jobs and they'll have a sustainable population. I don't know. I think I got us off on this tangent.
You did.
But I did. This is supposed to be the good news, but I saw
I've got good news, and I can dovetail it. I can segue
you can
from
tie it
Do
into
it,
my
Steve.
population worries.
because
Do
of all
it.
those good things in my heart.
By the way, AI, between COVID and all the Terminator movies, I don't think that people will go for it. Go ahead.
You talked about trust and the erosion of trust. How's this for trust? I've never heard I've heard people talk about stories like this. I've never seen one at a 40 Days for Life vigil that I can remember. A woman goes into the doctor for a prenatal visit, 11 weeks pregnant. They do the examination, say, I'm sorry, your baby has no heartbeat. They send her to Planned Parenthood for, quote, miscarriage care. Now, we keep hearing these lies about how since Dobbs has overturned Roe, that Planned Parenthood will be prevented from providing miscarriage care. And they keep trying to suggest that miscarriage and an abortion are the same thing. All that, a little bit of a separate issue here. What happened here, the woman shows up to Planned Parenthood for her, quote, miscarriage care. The pro-lifers say, before you do that, let us take you to the pregnancy center and get a second opinion. Turns out that her pregnancy was misdated. She wasn't 11 weeks pregnant. She was 6 weeks pregnant. They need to do a little bit more in-depth of an ultrasound to find a heartbeat, because that's right on the edge of where you can detect a heartbeat. So her baby was alive and well. That baby was almost aborted by a mother and father who wanted the child because of a medical error.
Yep. Okay. Well, I have a positive story to round this out. Another positive story, that is.
Underpopulation and the
It doesn't
global
link-
economy collapsing
This
is
is
it
like
positive?
the third podcast in a row where you brought up COVID before I did. I just want to put that on the record.
And I've been on an underpopulation kick too. So, anyways.
So there was this comes out of our great Escondido, California location. They were sharing a story that a young woman found out she was pregnant and was making an abortion appointment. And she asked a friend of hers to give her a ride to the abortion facility. And the friend reluctantly told her yes, but the reason why she was reluctant was because she had just heard an announcement at her church about 40 Days for Life and the prayer vigil outside of the local abortion facility. So in a bit of a panic, she decided, I'm going to contact those 40 Days for Life people and ask them what I do about this. And of course, the 40 Days for Life people were like, well, you don't want to drive her to the abortion facility. So they said, has she gone to a pregnancy center? Have you offered to take her there? Why don't you offer to take her there first? She can get all the free services. She can confirm her pregnancy. She can get an ultrasound. And so the pregnant mom, agreed to that. The friend took her to the pregnancy center, and she chose life there.
Hey,
which is amazing.
that's awesome.
So that was even before the sidewalk. Thank God that she didn't make it that far to where they had to encounter her on the sidewalk. And she chose life because a church announcement.
See, that's a great story. And I tell you who's happy about it are half the sociologists in the world that believe we're underpopulated. They are in supportive of that courageous mom.
There you go.
Okay, that's the last I'll mention it. Okay, anything I wanted to, before we wrap up, do we have anything else? Or
There's lots more
I know
stories,
there's lots
but
more stories. It's
we
kind
could
of
have
endless.
The joy is without limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's beautiful. It's beautiful, Steve. The joy is without limit. That's now I'm over all the sociologist stuff. I wanted to mention in a couple of weeks, we will have a webcast that you're all invited to. We will dive in, not just to some of these, but the ramifications of the Lent campaign, what we see coming forward. There is apparently an election coming up in the fall. We will cover that on the webcast. You'll hear from Ramona Trevino, the former Planned Parenthood manager. You'll hear from Dr. Haywood Robinson on that webcast. So please go to our website and register for it, and you will be able to watch that. What night is the webcast? Tuesday.
1 week from the air date here, Tuesday, the 16th of April.
The 16th. There we go. The day after tax day. There we go. So join us it's 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on Tuesday, April the 16th. So be sure to register for that. We will have a lot in that webcast, and there's a lot to cover. We'll also be giving a legal update on our lawsuit against the DOJ, which is coming up in May. So a lot of good stuff coming up as we get into summer. And I mentioned to register for the Celebrate Life weekend. That will be from June 21 through June 23. So be sure to join us for that. All right. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Steve. Please rate, review, and share this podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.